Hello, everyone. I am here with you today to share a journey that started for me late Saturday night. And if you haven't read my post yet, I encourage you to look for the image of a young woman in a hospital bed and go through that post, because that young woman should have never been there. She's my daughter. She is, I'm going to get emotional. I have a feeling. She is so much more than just my daughter. She is this bright, feisty ball of energy. And there is something about her that I just think of her and I smile. And she's got some edge. And I'm going to tell you a story of how that feisty, incredible young woman, how her flame almost went out. So though I'm telling her story, I'm going to be sharing my own personal experience through the process. So I'm going to be weaving through her experience, my experience, and different awarenesses. Now, if any of you watching have a health issue, and it doesn't have to be exactly the same as Megan's, and I'm only going to share a bit with you. She has given me permission, by the way. We have had this conversation because I believe there are too many people that slip through the cracks, that get ignored and get denied what they need. So yes, I'm here and I want to make some noise. And I'm hoping that you share this with others, because this is an experience that did not have to happen. And it is all due to medical negligence. And look, I have a lot of respect for the women and men and women that are out there saving lives in hospitals. And I'll tell you, Megan has received the most incredible care in the emergency, in the ICU, and now on the floor that she's on in the hospital. I have friends that are doctors. I have friends that are nurses and paramedics, and they are all absolutely incredible. And those aren't the ones we're going to be talking about today. But we have to remember them, that we don't get caught up in the bullshit of what I'm about to tell you, because it's really devastating. And in my opinion, it's disgusting. I'm dumbfounded in many ways by what I witnessed. So I'm going to give you a little background so you kind of know a little bit of what has led up to this. And there's a whole nother experience that is behind this. However, I want to start with what unfolded Saturday night. But before that, I'm just going to give you Saturday and maybe a couple of days before, just to bring it together for you. So last week, Megan wasn't feeling good. Now, she lives on her own. She has her own house and moved out a few years ago. So she's pretty independent. So I go to visit her because I'm close and I can. And we have an absolutely incredible relationship. So Tuesday, she started saying that she had a sore throat. And through the rest of the week, she continued to talk about the sore throat and how it was getting harder and harder to swallow. She did go to the doctors Wednesday, I believe. Yeah, it was Wednesday, because she had some back pain and other issues. But the back pain was starting to get so miserable that she forgot about her sore throat. We do that, right? We focus on, in that moment, in that breath, what is present, and we get absorbed in that. So for anyone who has health issues and you sense there's something going around, jot down what has been happening, whether it's a sore throat, fever, sluggishness. Just jot it down, that in case you go into your doctors, that you don't forget what are all the other things that are there, because it's important. And I didn't understand, or well, I'll leave it at that. I didn't understand how important it is. So I want to put that out there to anyone watching. So she has had this sore throat. Okay. So I have gone over a few days this week. We have our coffee together and we visit, and then she starts work. But she was feeling so miserable. And by Wednesday night, she was starting to feel very lightheaded. And so I went over and I stayed with her. We visited, we watched a movie. I watched a movie. She slept because she didn't feel that great and just didn't want to be alone. So I was there. Thursday, she started to get lightheaded, and it would be there, it would be gone. It was like it was in and out, but she was still achy and feeling like crap. Continued on Friday. And then Saturday, on Friday when I left, I said, since I don't have any client appointments early tomorrow and you aren't working, how about I stop by and we have coffee, like not too early in the morning, just like let's have coffee together. And it was like, yeah. So it was just before noon on Saturday that I was there, and she was not looking very good. And, we hear that when, and I want you to pay attention to this. This is important too. We hear that when we're not feeling well, get plenty of rest, drink plenty of liquids. Sounds right. It did to me. And I encouraged her to do the same. So the throat was still an issue for her, a lot of achiness, more dizziness. And I left, and then about 12 minutes after 8, because on this trusty little device, I got a message that said, Mama. When she's not feeling good, she calls me Mama. And I was like, huh. And as soon as I noticed it, seconds later, my phone rings and she's crying, and she said, I just threw up. I can't clean it up. I'm too dizzy. I can't bend down. And she was just out, out of sorts. She just didn't know what to do. So fortunately for me, I am a few minutes away. So I hopped in the car and I went over, and I'm going to share this because she told me to. She was sitting on the bathroom toilet, on this toilet, and she had thrown up, and she sat down because she couldn't stand. She was that dizzy, and she couldn't make it to the sink. She couldn't put her head down to throw up in the toilet. She had to sit down or she would have fallen. And then she couldn't move. And, I shared a little bit about this Tim Hortons cup that was on the sink on the counter in the bathroom. She grabbed that and she continued to throw up. Now, a clear cup, I think it's a medium size. They hold a minimum of 2 cups. She filled that 3 times. And I shared that's significance because that is 6 cups of fluid. She hadn't been eating because her throat was so sore. 6 cups, and she had already thrown up. How much can the body take? She was drinking lots of fluids to keep herself hydrated, and yet all that water was gone. All the liquid was gone. So she got cleaned up. I got the floor cleaned up, and she makes her way to the bedroom. And she lays down, and I'm watching her, and she's just like gaunt. She didn't look good. And I was watching her, and her head was kind of like, she couldn't hold her head up. So she would slowly lay down. I said, look, I'm going to stay. I'm going to She has a dog, Amber, and I said, I'm going to take Amber downstairs. We'll watch a movie together so she doesn't have to be crated, because at that point, Megan she couldn't handle a big dog. So, and I didn't want to see the poor baby crated, so she came downstairs with me. I shut Megan's door so she could get proper rest. And I went downstairs and watched an episode of my show, and then I went back upstairs, and as I was going up the stairs, I heard her go to the bathroom, and she was sick again. And I was looking at her, and I was like, she did not look good, not at all. And I started to feel, my heart started to sink at that point, and I started to feel just extreme sadness wash over me. So I got her back to bed, and I was standing there beside her bed while she was barely able to lift her head. She propped herself up. Not at that point. She was still sitting up. I can still see her. And I was looking at her body frame. When I was there on Thursday, she was really dizzy and she wanted to wash her hair and all that stuff. And she sat down in the tub, and I held the shower, the nozzle, because she was that weak. So she washed her hair, and I looked at the frame of her body, and she has lost a lot of weight over the past year, in less than a year, actually. And I was looking at her and I was thinking, she didn't look healthy. Now, some people lose weight and they look healthy, but she's been losing so much weight, she didn't look good. And it wasn't a good way. She wasn't trying to lose weight. It was just literally falling off her. Now, that was Thursday. And on Saturday night, when I was looking at her in the bed, sitting there, I looked at her frame, and I was she looked like she had lost more weight. She was smaller. And it's that thing where you think your eyes are playing tricks on you. And I thought, no, it's probably my imagination, because, she's not feeling well. She's not feeling well. And I'm just seeing something that's not really there. So at that point, I'm watching her, and she is really struggling to sit up. So she does finally prop herself up. And I said to her, I'm concerned. Now, as she'll tell people, I'm not a helicopter mom. I don't hover over her. Look, I create space for her to be who she is, because that's what I do. It's who I am. And I want women, no matter what their age, to be able to stand up for themselves. So I don't hover. Even though she's my daughter, I do not hover. However, when I looked at her, I thought, something is wrong. Something is wrong. And I said to her, I think it would be a good idea to call the ambulance. To call for an ambulance. What do you think? And she said, I'm scared. And let me tell you, I was pretty freaking scared too. And I said to her, I get that. And I think this is the best thing. So she wanted to put on specific clothes, something comfy. I don't even remember where she got these pull-on pants, just like a deep burgundy. And she asked me, there's a little bit of funny in here. She asked me to get her a shirt. So I go to her drawer and I said, is there any specific one you want? And she said, no. So I just grabbed one, and it was blue. And she's like, get me the black one. My pants are red. They were deep burgundy. And I was like, really? All I could think of was, you're going to be in a Johnny shirt soon, right? Fashion is not an issue here. And I was like, okay. So I went back and I got her a black shirt, to which she approved. And then I said to her, do you really need a bra? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, okay. No, not that full of strength. She was weak, but it was like, she was really clear. And I was like, okay. So while she was getting herself dressed, she's just laying in bed, getting herself dressed, I went and I grabbed every medication she had, and I made sure she had her Medicare card, the pills, anything that she could possibly need, including a phone charger, because you don't want to be trapped in the hospital with like nothing, right? So I grabbed everything together, went downstairs on the main level and got everything basically prepared. And then once she was dressed, she made her way very slowly down the stairs, and she laid down in the living room until the ambulance came. So at 11:28, I called 911, and they put me through to dispatch for the paramedics. And while they were talking, they told me, put the pets away. If you have any pets, put your pets away. You need to be social distancing. You need to have your masks on. You know, we have to protect ourselves. And I was like, okay. So I hung up the phone. I put the dog in the kennel. I put the poor cat in the bathroom and grabbed our masks. And we waited. The ambulance was there fairly quickly. And when they came in, they asked us what was going on. And I said, basically she's dizzy. She's having labor, shortness of breath. And she's achy, like she's got the sore back and everything. But the big thing is she's been throwing up, and I think she might be dehydrated. And I'm worried for her because I've been watching her through the week, and I've been watching her health deteriorate literally before my eyes. So they put this clip on her finger. I think it's called an oxygenator, or I don't know. It's to measure the level of oxygen in her lungs. And they took her temperature. She did have a bit of a temperature. I think it was 38 point something. I don't know. I can't remember, but it was high. And they checked her heartbeat. Okay. So they started to tell her that she needed to slow down her breathing. And she was trying to. But she was so dizzy. So they asked if she was on any medications, and I jumped up from the sofa and I grabbed the medications. There was 4 of them, and I went to show the one of the paramedics what they were, and he said, "Oh, I don't need to see those. They'll probably need them later if she goes to the hospital." And I said, "Oh, okay." And now the paramedic that was had just taken her temperature. He asked her about the medications, and she told him what she was on. Now, this is important because one is a prescription for type 2 diabetes. I think it's called, I don't know. I think it's called metformin. I think it's called metformin. So it's for type 2 diabetes. The other one is an antidepressant. I think antidepressant, or I think it's that. It's for anxiety, I think. And I'm saying that because I'm not 100% sure. Because right now I'm trying my best to share this with you and the importance. Now, here's the next thing that's happening. That happened. That was quite interesting. They said to her, she needs to slow her breathing. And the only reason that she was dizzy was because she wasn't breathing right. And I was like, I was trying to tell her all day, you got to breathe differently. And he says, "Oh, it sounds like someone told you this." And she's like, "But I'm dizzy. Like, I'm dizzy." She kept on talking about she was dizzy. She couldn't hold her head up. She was lying down, right? And then he said, look, one of them said, we can take her in the ambulance, but really they'll probably test for COVID. And if she's positive, then you're going to have to self-isolate. You'll have to get yourself tested. And really, she's probably going to be home in a couple of hours. So you'll have to go and pick her up. And I was like, okay. And I said, but she's really dizzy, and I'm concerned. I'm worried about her. Like, I've seen her go downhill in the past few days. And repeated, the only reason that she was dizzy was because she wasn't feeling well. And I was like, we can take her. And then they paused, and the one who had taken her temperature looks over at me, and he says, who are you? I said, I'm her mother. And he goes, Then he looks at Megan and says, how old are you? She said, and like, she's not focusing. She's just like, she's out of it. And she says 24. And he looks over at me and he said, this is her choice. She is legal age, and she can choose for herself whether or not she goes in the ambulance. And at that point, I'm looking at my daughter, and I was like, okay, point taken. Thank you very much. But there was something, they kept on like, almost like they really were trying to convince us not for her to go in the ambulance. And so when she gave her medication, the one who had taken her temperature, I think his name was Tim, and he looked at her and he said, now he focused on one of the medications, which was, I believe, an antidepressant. So he said she wasn't really looking at him because she was like having issues to hold her head up. And I'm watching him though, because this is part of what I do. I watch people's body language. And he's like, do you think this is anxiety? Do you think this might be anxiety? And she says, no. And he says, are you sure? Do you remember how you feel when you don't take your medication? Have you taken it today? Are you sure this is an anxiety? And I'm watching him, and I'm looking at her on the sofa, and I'm thinking, I've worked with many women who have been on various medications. And I can tell you, I'm looking at her and I'm like, that don't look like anxiety to me. It just didn't. But here's the thing. He was so focused on that he didn't consider the metformin, which is a diabetic prescription. He only focused on one thing, and the pair of them continued to basically attempt to deter us from her going in the ambulance. Now, was he making up stories that she's a young woman and she's a drama queen? Maybe. I don't know. All I know for sure is how I felt and how she felt. And it's that they were clearly not wanting to take her. And the bottom line is, if you're calling for an ambulance, it's because you believe you have a need for one. So they said one final time, what do you want us to do? And I was like, I would appreciate if she went with you in the ambulance to the hospital. I'm concerned about dehydration, and she doesn't look good and hasn't. And the shift in how she looks from noon today until 8 o'clock tonight has been huge. Major shift downhill. And I wasn't okay with it. So finally, yay, they helped her get up and walk to the ambulance. So I go home, and I'm expecting that in a couple of hours, I'm probably going to get a phone call from the Emerge to pick her up. And my phone was almost dead, and I'm like, crap. So I plugged it in the living room, and then I was like, oh, Okay, well, I can't go to bed. I can't go to bed until my phone's fully charged. So I sat there and I read a little bit. I listened to some music. I watched some TV, and I kept on checking the phone. I had the phone on, making sure that if I got a call, I was ready to go. And I wanted to be alert. So once my phone, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and once my phone was finally charged, unplugged it, and went upstairs, and I thought, I'm going to put it on. I'll have it on that I can hear the phone if it rings, and I put it right beside my bed, right beside me on my bed. And at about, I think it was 6:09 in the morning, I got a call, and they said, you can come in to see Megan at the emergency. I'll let them know at the front desk that you will be coming in. So I thought, okay, she's okay. So I'm going to get a little bit more sleep, and then I'm going to go to the hospital. And my thought was, I'm going to pick her up. So, I fast forward, I get to the hospital, I go into emergency, and they tell me where her room is. And I open the door and was not prepared at all to see what I saw. I saw my beautiful, feisty daughter just laying there and pasty white and having trouble to breathe, and all of these monitors and IVs like hanging down and all plugged into her. And I was like, there was no nurses around or anything. And I just stood there. There wasn't a chair in the room, and I just stood there, and I was like beside myself, because I thought, what the fuck? Like what's going on? Because, compared to what she looked like just like the night before to now, was very different. And I just was so in shock by what I saw, and nothing that I could have expected, or I don't think anything could have prepared me for that. So I left the room, and she opened her eyes, and when she opened her eyes, she just broke my heart. They rolled back, and I was like, I didn't want her to see my concern, my fear is what it was. That was the first time I think I've really felt fear, and all these other times I thought I felt fear. I can tell you, that was not fear. This was genuine. Like, I was so scared for her. And she's like, Mama, I love you. And I was like, I could barely hear her. And she dozed off. She was out again. So I cried my tears, and I walked out of the room, and I'm looking around for anybody, and no one was around. It's Emerge. I mean, people are like, they're running back and forth, and like they're on the move. And I went back into the room, and a few seconds later, Nurse Alice came in, and I said to her, what's going on? And she said, Megan has DKA. And at that moment, I was like, DKA? And she said, diabetic ketoacidosis, I believe is what it is. Never heard of it in my life. And she said, it's a good thing you brought her in. And I said, I had to fight to get her in. I had to fight to get her in. Because like the paramedics were deterring us from bringing her in. She's like, what? She says, you need to say something. Because if she hadn't come in, she would have died. And I was like, what? What? she says, DKA is serious. And I said to her, my intention when I went over there was to help her clean up and like get her to bed so she could rest. I said, if I had left her, would she have died? And she said, I'm sorry to be blunt, but yes, she would have. And I was like, what? So here I'm standing there and I'm trying to take all this in, and I'm beside myself. I'm in my room, in this room alone with my daughter, watching her fight for her life. And the nurse left for a second. She came back and she had a paper and she gave me a phone number to follow up with the paramedics, and she wrote DKA and what it was, and she said, you can Google it. And I will tell you honestly, I have not Googled it because I don't want to get distracted and not be 100% focused on what my daughter needs. She's got doctors, she's got surgeons. I've met some of them, and she's got a team pulling for her. They're gathering around her. They're taking care of her. I don't need to go and get all the details of DKA. Will I later? Yes. Will I follow up and follow through on how to help best support her once she's out? Yes. And right now, all I know is that DKA can kill you. It can kill you. Now, something the nurse, Alice, in the emergency room said was that something must have triggered this to happen. Now, on Sunday morning, we didn't know what that was. There is a belief, and it's not clear, and I'm being honest with you. It could be the strep throat that triggered it to intensify all the sugars just go. Now, the other thing that is important, and I encourage you, all of you listening, if you go to your doctors or get put on a new prescription, be adamant that they do a follow through or a follow up in, I don't know, like 2 months or something, to make sure whatever medication you're being prescribed, that it is working for you, that nothing has changed or shifted. It is so important. That never happened for Megan. It was about a year ago she was put on this medication, and her doctor never followed up, never got new blood work done to see if it was making a difference or if she needed something different. No follow-up, no follow-through. So that's important. Make sure you follow up for yourself, because if you don't, this could happen. If you are a diabetic, if you're a type 2 or I'm just going to say, if you're diabetic, if you're feeling sluggish, if you've been feeling fine and suddenly you're feeling sluggish or dizzy, I encourage you to go and see your doctor while you're still able to walk. Get someone to take you. Make sure they do blood work. Just even the prick in the finger to test your blood sugar level. The paramedics, even though they knew she was on a medication, have had my daughter's ass in the ambulance and they'd be on their frickin' way with the lights going. But no, they didn't. They focused on one of her medications, and whatever story they were telling themselves, it nearly cost me my daughter's life. It nearly cost her life. You have to be aware of these things. If you ever call for an ambulance, and look, share this with everybody, the oxygen levels, when they tested her, her oxygen levels were perfect. Now, it's a machine. There's room for error. There's room for human error. There's room for technical error. Come on. but her lungs were fine. Her fever was not high enough to raise concern for them. So they were convinced. They had themselves convinced. Whether they looked at her as a drama queen or not, I don't know. But they went by the fact that her fever wasn't high enough for them. Her oxygen levels were perfect. Therefore, the only reason that she was dizzy was because she wasn't breathing properly. That is not the case. Her body was shutting down. For the past year, less than a year, her body has been eating itself. DKA is serious. When she told her doctor, a few months after she had lost all this weight, she was in for something else. When she went and she said to her doctor, the doctor who put her on this medication for diabetes, type 2, she told her that she had lost, I think at that point, maybe 60 pounds. And she said, and I haven't done anything. I'm not trying to diet. I'm not trying to lose weight. And her doctor said, congratulations, good for you. That was a warning sign. That was a warning sign. She didn't have to ever end up in the frickin' hospital. She did not ever have to come close to losing her life. Do not make assumptions that your doctor, yes, in the moment, in the breath, they have your best interest, and they have, I don't know, maybe thousands of other patients. Now, is that an excuse? Well, it's one I think they can stand by in many ways. So it's up to you. If you're put on a new prescription or any kind of medication, I'm getting like flustered here. For the love of God, follow through. Before you even leave, if they give you a prescription, say, so do you want me to come back and get a paper to get blood work done in 2 months, that we can stay on top of it? If they say no, say, I'd really like to get blood work done in a couple of months to make sure this is working for me. Make an appointment then. Do the follow through and stand up for yourself and do it in the best way possible, because we put a lot of faith in others. And what we do is we disconnect from what we know is moving within us. So my daughter lost, I think at this point, it's maybe 80 pounds. It's near 100 pounds. Here's the spooky thing. Remember I said that when I helped her, wash, get her hair washed and everything in the shower, and that was Thursday. And then on Saturday, her body frame looked smaller. She looked frail. She's 5'9". She's beautiful and radiant. And she looked gaunt. And this is what I learned yesterday. In a matter of 2.5 days at the hospital, now keep this in mind, she's hooked up to, at one point there was 6 different IVs hooked up. She's got everything she could possibly need feeding into her body, okay? She lost 15 pounds in 2.5 days. Now, imagine what have happened if they had not have taken her by ambulance. Because with everything she could possibly need, she lost 15 pounds in 2.5 days. Not okay. Not okay. So she is now out of the ICU, meaning her blood sugars are still high, higher than they need to be, should be, or could be. They are high. Stabilizing means they're more in control. And I'm sharing that with you because I wouldn't have understood the difference before. So when she was in ICU, her electrolytes were not in control. They were out of whack. Her blood sugar levels were out of whack. They were not in control. They at one point thought she may have pneumonia. I think they've pretty much ruled that out. She does have an extreme case of strep throat, which could be the thing that started all this. Could be, not necessarily is. And they are waiting for other tests to come back. They take about 48 hours or so to, for them to get the proper readings. And there is probably possibly another infection that they're looking at. So she's out of the ICU. She is on the mends, and resting wasn't the best thing for her. Drinking all the water. Gosh, we hear how important it is to drink water. She was drinking lots of water to stay hydrated. But what was happening is, in the process, she was flushing out the electrolytes, diluting everything, and then vomiting. So I want to share this because if you're on an anxiety medication and you're on a prescription for diabetes, you could be possibly judged. And that's the only thing that I can possibly think is why they wouldn't have taken her. They judged her, and they focused only on her antidepressant rather than focusing on the fact that she was on a diabetic prescription. And they never took blood work. And I believe now I'm told that is a standard thing that they do. They skipped that step, and they could have killed my daughter. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not okay about that. I'm not okay with any of it. It is negligence in the most incredible way. Insane. Her doctor, come on. Not following through, not following up. Now, I didn't think about this. My daughter had been, she goes to see her doctor, and I don't know what they're talking about. It is her life. And it's still her life. And I can't beat myself up. But I really believe that whatever we move through in life is an opportunity to grow and expand our own lives. So I'm sharing this with you so that you don't make any assumptions about your health, and you don't make any assumptions about the great doctor that you have, because her doctor is sweet. She's a wonderful woman. She's also my doctor. Ooh. And this isn't about bashing the medical society. It's about being aware that you need to be aware of your own body and how you're feeling, what's moving through you, and not put your faith in someone else outside of you. And I mentioned this, I think, the other day. You can't put your faith in someone outside of you when it doesn't feel right inside of you. When there's that feeling of like, well, this is how I feel, and they're saying this. When this is going on, this push me, pull me, no. You be clear. And the challenge is, in a weakened state, you can be easily convinced of things. And I'll tell you, when I sat there, on Saturday night, listening that her oxygen levels are good, her heart rate is good, like it's nothing to be concerned about. She's got a fever, but, it's probably COVID, she could go and get tested. And I even said that, we talked about that, but she couldn't stand up. And I have a compromised immune system. So I couldn't be the one that stood neck and neck and close to her in the lineup to hold her up. But I'm going to tell you something. There's no way she could have stood up in a line to get tested. So even for me, everything they said made sense, right? But when I look over on the sofa and I look at her, nothing made sense. Everything they said, yeah, oxygen levels great, bit of a fever. I don't know, 38. I think it was like fairly like closer to 39. But all those things, okay, fine. They're not a big deal, maybe. But trust your gut instinct. Trust that knowing that is within you, because if you don't, it could mean your life. And don't necessarily, and here's the thing, I don't want you to not trust people. Absolutely not the message here. It's about knowing that what you know and what you feel inside of you, no one else can feel and no one else can know. They don't live in your body. Only you do. So you have to be really clear on how you're feeling and why it's important for you to take steps that are right for you, irrelevant of what others are saying around you. So Megan is now, like I said, she's on the mend. She's not, yesterday she wasn't out of the woods. She's out of the woods now. She's got a road ahead that's going to be very different for her. And, my sister said to me, oh, it's so sad. She's 24 and she's going to be insulin dependent. And anyone who knows me is I always look for the bright side of things. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm excited that she has the opportunity to be insulin dependent, because it means she's here. She's here to see another day. So I wanted to share this with you. And there's a lot of backstory to what has gone on in Megan's life. And, we look at people and we think we know what their lives are like. We stand on the outside of them and we look at them and we make up stories. And it's not about just Megan. We do this in our society as well. We see someone, we look at their attire, we look at their weight. We do this. And we do this because, this is how we were brought up in many ways. We heard all this. And I'll tell you, this kid has been, and yeah, she's 24, she's a young woman, but she's my girl. And she's been through so much shit in the past year, and none of it has had to do with COVID. I've been through a lot, and none of it has had to do with COVID. COVID is just the mask we wear, and I'll tell you, wear a mask. Don't complain about it. Just don't. Pay attention to your body. If you have friends that are on medications, or if you're on medications, I encourage you to consider, when was the last time that you had blood work done to make sure that those medications are still working for you. Because every day our bodies adjust, and maybe your medication is still working for you, maybe it's not, but take time to find out. So I'm probably going to be updating you. I would like to do a live once Megan is out of the hospital, so she can share her experience, and maybe she'll give you more detail about what has gone on. She has shared so much with me and has allowed me to share whatever I want, whatever I feel is of benefit. So I don't want to be on too much longer. This is longer than I expected to be on. But I did want to create this awareness for you, because no one is perfect. People get tired. People get to the end of their shift. People make up stories. And you can't afford to be that story. You have to look out for yourself and not in a way that, well, you better look out yourself, no one else will. It's not that. It's that you need to be aware that you have one life to live, and it's up to you to really pay attention and savor it, cherish it, and embrace it differently. If you're on medications, maybe it's time to reach out to your doctor and say, hey, I'd like to get some blood work done to make sure this prescription is still working with, for me. So today's live was really about creating awareness of how dangerous it can be when we let others make decisions for us when they're not knowing what's fully going on in our bodies and having a clue what we've been through, because all of the backstory for Megan has all contributed. So it's really important. So remember who you are. Remember and consider, and we don't always do this, so consider what's really important to you. What's important to you? And if you're on medications, jot them down somewhere, just in case you're alone and you're weak and you're unable to speak. Jot them down, keep them in your wallet, keep one in your coffee table. Just do what you can to look out for you, because I'm happy I was there, because I don't know if Megan would have called the ambulance on her own. I'm going to say chances are not that she would. I don't think she would have, but that's a story. However, if she had have, and she had someone looking at her going, do you think this is anxiety? Doesn't this feel like anxiety? Nodding their head. Your oxygen levels are good. Yeah, fever's not that high. If you had someone telling you all those things and you're in a weakened state, that's a slippery friggin' slope, because you could be buying into someone else's beliefs. And then what happens is you don't wake up in the morning. And I'm not okay with that. I don't want you to be okay with that. So I saw lots of comments coming in, and I will address them after, later on. I just wanted to stay focused on, what was there for me. And I'm going to reiterate, if you know someone who is just losing a lot of weight, and maybe they're loving the fact that they're losing weight, maybe encourage them to get tested for diabetes, because something else is going on, and don't wait until it's possibly too late. All right, huge hugs to you, and I will update you on Megan's health. Like I said, she's stabilizing, like she's getting there. There's still stuff she needs to do. And I'm also, I want to share with you, I just saw a message come in, look after you too, Amy. I'll tell you, the first 2 days were really being an automatic. And yesterday, before I planned on getting to the hospital, I made a phone call, and they were going to be changing her to leave the ICU. So they suggested I wait. However, with COVID, what happened is once she got to her floor, she wasn't allowed any visitors. So I rested. I put my feet up yesterday, and this is important too. I think it was, and everything is a bit of a blur to me. I believe it was Monday. No, it was yesterday morning. It was yesterday morning when I woke up. I was really, when you feel exhausted and your throat's all groggy and you're not fully alert yet. And it can be 10 o'clock in the morning, and you still can have that going on. And I felt that way. And the night before, I said to Megan, I'm going to be there by 9:30. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to stay for a short period of time. Then I'm going to come home, have lunch, put my feet up and rest, and then go back. So that was our plan. And I recognized at 9:30 I wasn't close to feeling in my body that I would be smart to go over. And I looked at my ankles, and I have this thing where if I get overly tired and I'm standing a lot and I'm stressed, my legs swell. So I was very mindful of that. So what I did yesterday was I had my feet up and I was waiting till I felt better, like I was clear. And when I was at that point, I sent her a message and said, I'm just going to call the hospital. I'm going to check in. And when I called, they told me basically not to come. So, and now I didn't see her yesterday, didn't see her today. However, we're sending messages back and forth. And so, yes, if you're there for someone else, be mindful to also take care of yourself. It is so important because if something comes up where they really need you and you're pushing, you will not be in a good place for yourself. You don't want to end up in the hospital as well for different reasons. So take care of yourself. Huge hugs to all of you who have tuned in. And if you have any questions, just drop them below. Reach out to me. I am here. Huge hugs.